The great council chamber of the alien empire was silent, filled with shadows and cold light from the distant stars. Around the long table sat the alien leaders, their eyes glowing with arrogance, their voices carrying the weight of power. They spoke slowly, but with certainty, as if the future was already written. The council's high speaker raised his long arm and tapped the table, a sound that echoed through the chamber. "The humans," he declared, "will not last. When our fleets arrive, they will fall in hours." The others nodded in agreement. Their reports showed Earth's defenses as small, their ships few, and their technology old. They believed humanity was nothing more than a fragile race, clinging to a small world with no future. To them, it was not a war but an execution. Outside the chamber, the stars burned quietly, as if waiting for the prophecy to unfold. Yet inside, the leaders laughed. They compared humans to insects underfoot. They spoke of crushing Earth not just to win, but to show the galaxy what happened when a young species dared to resist. One leader whispered that it would be a lesson to every planet. Never believe in the courage of humans, because courage meant nothing against the Empire. Another leader smiled and said they should broadcast the destruction across all systems, so that humanity's end would be remembered forever. The arrogance was thick in the air, heavy like smoke, and none of them imagined for even a second that they might be wrong. At the edge of the table sat an older alien, his scales faded and his eyes dim. He remembered something the others ignored. Long ago, in secret archives, there were stories about humans. Stories not of weakness, but of defiance. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the council's high speaker slammed the table again and silenced him. "Do not waste our time with myths," the speaker snapped. "Facts are all that matter. The humans are weak. They will break." The older alien fell quiet, but inside his mind a warning echoed. He remembered the ancient words, "Never underestimate the humans, for they do not fight with only ships or weapons, they fight with something deeper, something unseen." But no one wanted to listen. The council voted, and the decision was final. The fleets would launch at dawn across the stars, heading straight for Earth. Already, thousands of warships prepared their weapons, their engines humming in the dark of space. Soldiers cheered, believing victory was only hours away. The Empire sent messages to its colonies, promising that a new age of dominance was about to begin, one where no one would ever question their power again. Yet in that same moment, far away on Earth, a small transmission reached human ears. It was not a warning of hope, but a death sentence. The aliens had declared humanity's doom, and the galaxy believed it. Across cities, bases and ships, the message spread. The most powerful empire in the stars had promised Earth would fall in hours. Fear moved through the people like a storm. Mothers held their children, soldiers gritted their teeth, and leaders gathered in silence. The prophecy of doom had been spoken, and the universe was ready to watch it come true. But deep in that silence, hidden behind fear, there was also something else, something the aliens had not predicted. The humans were listening, and inside their hearts, something was beginning to burn. Something that could not be measured in numbers, charts, or predictions. The alien leaders thought they had seen everything. They thought humanity's story was already written. But they were wrong. Very wrong. And soon, the stars themselves would shake when the truth was revealed. The transmission spread across Earth like fire in dry grass. At first, only a few scientists and military officers saw it, but soon it reached command centers, governments, and even the streets. The Alien Council's voice was cold, sharp, and full of confidence. It declared that humanity's end had already been decided, that Earth would not survive for more than a few hours once the fleets arrived. The message carried the weight of certainty, and for many, it felt like a death sentence. In a hidden base deep underground, leaders of Earth gathered. Generals, admirals, scientists, and politicians sat around a long table, their faces pale in the dim light. The recording of the Alien Council played again, the alien voice echoing across the room. When it ended, silence fell heavy. No one spoke at first, as if words would only make the fear stronger. A young officer finally broke the silence, his voice trembling. They think we will fall in hours. An older general slammed his fist against the table. "That's because they don't know us," he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the weight he carried. Across the cities, ordinary people also heard the message. Workers in factories stopped what they were doing to watch the broadcast. Students in classrooms sat frozen as the alien words played on their screens. Families at dinner tables stared at each other in disbelief. Some cried, some shouted in anger, and some refused to believe it at all. Fear spread quickly, but alongside it came something else: pride. "Who are they to say we will fall?" whispered a man in a crowded train. "We are not done yet," said a soldier cleaning his weapon. On a distant space station orbiting the moon, engineers huddled together, whispering about unfinished projects and secret designs hidden from alien eyes. Humanity had always been underestimated, but now the truth of that underestimation felt sharper than ever. In the underground war room, the leaders finally began to speak. "They are arrogant," said one admiral. "They see our small fleets and think that is all we are. But they have not seen our minds, our spirit." A scientist leaned forward, her voice low but determined. "We may not match their numbers. We may not match their firepower. But what we have is unpredictability. We fight in ways they cannot imagine." The older general nodded. "They think they have already written our story. That will be their mistake." 4 hours, the leaders argued and planned. Maps of space lit up the room. Red markers showed where the alien fleets were moving, massive clouds of ships stretching across the stars toward Earth. Green markers showed humanity's defenses, small clusters of ships, stations, and colonies. To anyone looking, it seemed hopeless. The numbers were too great, the difference too wide. Yet every time despair crept into the room, someone pushed it back with a reminder of what humanity had survived before: wars, disasters, struggles that had seemed impossible. "They said we would not survive the cold of space," one leader said. "But we built cities among the stars." Another added, "They said our planet's limits would bind us, but we reached beyond them." Slowly, determination replaced silence. Humanity's spirit was waking up. Across Earth, secret orders spread. Factories that had once built ships for trade now shifted to building weapons. Laboratories brought out designs hidden for years. Pilots were called back from leave, engineers summoned from homes, and soldiers from across the planet began to prepare. Yet all of this was done in silence. The humans did not send back a reply to the alien council. They did not argue or beg. They listened quietly, and behind closed doors, they sharpened their claws. Out in the streets, people spoke of doom, but in their hearts, they carried defiance. "If this is the end," whispered a mother holding her child, "then we will not go quietly." On the other side of the world, a mechanic tightening bolts on a small fighter said to his friend, "If they think we will fall in hours, let's make them fall in minutes." The prophecy of doom was written across the stars, but Earth was writing its own story in secret ink, a story the aliens could not see. And as the alien fleets moved closer with every passing day, humanity waited. Not in fear alone, but in silence, like a predator hidden in the shadows. For the first time in centuries, the leaders of Earth stood united, their rivalries forgotten. They were not just defending their world, they were defending their place in the galaxy. The alien council thought humanity was finished. But the humans had only just begun. Soon, the silence would break. Soon, the galaxy would see what happens when you predict the doom of a species that refuses to surrender. The sky above Earth's outer colonies burned with warning lights as the first alien fleets arrived. Sirens echoed across space stations, and defense cannons turned toward the endless dark. Humanity had been waiting, but now the wait was over. The prophecy of doom was about to be tested. Alien warships emerged from hyperspace like shadows swallowing the stars. Their hulls were vast, armored, and glowing with power. Whole armadas stretched across the void, each ship larger than any human craft. In the alien command vessel, generals smiled coldly. "The humans will crumble in hours," one said. "Their defenses are a joke." On Earth and in orbit, alarms filled the air. In control rooms, commanders barked orders, pilots rushed to their fighters, and soldiers strapped into battle stations. On one small defense station at the edge of Earth's territory, a young officer whispered to himself, "This is it. This is where we prove them wrong." The alien fleet advanced, weapons charging. They expected panic, retreat, or surrender. Instead, silence met them. Human ships, small, outnumbered, fragile compared to alien giants, held their ground. The first clash began with a sudden flash. Alien cannons unleashed beams of deadly energy, tearing across space toward the human fleet. The light was blinding, the soundless impact shaking entire ships. But when the fire cleared, the humans had already moved. Their ships scattered like sparks, weaving between blasts with impossible speed. The aliens were stunned. "They dodge," one commander hissed. "They improvise." The humans answered with their own firepower, weaker but precise. Every shot was calculated, every missile aimed not at the strongest armor but at hidden weaknesses, supply lines, fuel pods, sensor arrays. One by one, alien ships faltered, not from brute force, but from unexpected precision. In the control room of the alien flagship, voices rose in shock. How do they know where to strike? But the truth was simple. Humans studied, adapted, and learned faster than any prediction. While the aliens trusted numbers, the humans trusted cunning. On board a human frigate, Captain Elias gripped the controls, sweat pouring down his face. His ship was shaking from near hits, but his eyes were locked on the tactical screen. "Push them into the trap," he ordered. His voice was steady, unshaken. The alien fleet followed, confident in their overwhelming power. What they did not know was that hidden mines, cloaked drones, and decoys waited in the darkness. Suddenly, explosions ripped through the alien formation. Ships that had been certain of victory spun helplessly, flames breaking across their hulls. Alien generals shouted in rage and disbelief. "This is impossible. They were supposed to fall in hours." But humanity had turned hours into minutes of chaos. Across the battlefield, small human ships darted like predators, striking and vanishing, forcing the aliens to fire blindly. The arrogance of the prophecy crumbled in real time. On Earth, commanders watched the battle unfold through transmissions. At first their faces were tense with fear, but as alien ships began to fall, hope flickered in their eyes. One general whispered, "We can do this. We can fight them." The aliens had expected to crush ants. Instead, they found wolves waiting in the dark. Yet the fight was not without cost. Human ships burned too, torn apart by alien fire. Pilots sacrificed themselves to buy time, ramming enemy ships or shielding allies. The clash was brutal, fast, and merciless. But with every sacrifice, humanity's spirit grew stronger. The aliens could not understand it. Numbers and logic told them this was impossible. And yet, here it was, unfolding before their eyes. As the first wave ended, debris floated across the void. Alien ships, once thought invincible, lay shattered among the stars. Human ships, battered and scarred, still stood. In the alien command chamber, silence fell. For the first time, doubt flickered in their cold eyes. "This was not the prophecy," one whispered. On Earth, cheers erupted in bases and cities. Humanity had survived the first clash. They had proven they would not fall in hours. But as the celebration echoed, commanders knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would not stop. They would return with more, with fury, with vengeance. Humanity had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. And in the quiet that followed, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The Alien Council sat in disbelief as reports poured in from the front lines. Their mighty fleets, which were supposed to crush Earth in hours, had been damaged, scattered, and even destroyed by human resistance. Pride and anger burned in their voices as they shouted across the chamber. "Impossible," one snarled. "Their ships are weak. Their weapons are outdated. How did this happen?" But for all their shouting, none of them had an answer. Across the galaxy, Whispers spread. The prophecy of human doom was failing. On Earth, however, the leaders did not waste time celebrating. They knew the first clash was only a beginning. The alien empire would come back, stronger and angrier than before. Humanity had bought time, but time alone would not save them. In an underground complex hidden beneath mountains, scientists and engineers worked day and night on something the world had never seen. Massive doors sealed the laboratories away from curious eyes. Even many military leaders did not know the full truth of what was being built. The project had been started years earlier, in secret, under the name Aegis Protocol. It was born out of fear. Fear that one day humanity would face something far greater than itself. Now that fear had become reality, and the secret could no longer remain hidden. Inside the labs, strange machines hummed. Engineers walked among towering frames of metal, glowing reactors, and weapons unlike anything in use across Earth. The project was not just a new ship or a new cannon. It was an entire system, a weapon designed not to overpower the enemy with size, but to outthink them, outmaneuver them, and tear them apart from the inside. One scientist, her hands trembling with exhaustion, looked up at the screen where alien fleets approached. "If this doesn't work," she whispered, "then nothing will." Military commanders were finally brought into the secret. At first they were stunned, staring at the colossal warship hidden in the shadows of the underground hangar. It was not as large as the alien giants, but its design was sharper, faster, and more dangerous. It was built with stealth plating, advanced targeting systems, and experimental drives that could twist through space faster than any alien craft. Its weapons were designed to adapt in real time, learning from every battle and changing their strikes instantly. Where alien ships trusted brute force, this creation trusted precision and intelligence. The project's leader stood before the gathered officers and spoke calmly. "This is not a weapon of power. This is a weapon of unpredictability. They believe we will fight like them, that numbers and size matter most. But this ship, this system, was designed to make their numbers meaningless." The commanders stared at the ship, feeling both hope and fear. It was untested, risky, and dangerous even to its own pilots. But there was no choice. The aliens were coming back, and humanity needed more than bravery to survive. Soon after, the ship was deployed in silence, leaving its hidden hangar and rising into the blackness of space. It carried only a small crew, each one sworn to secrecy, each one prepared to give their life. As it left Earth's orbit, its sleek form vanished from sensors. It disappeared into the void, invisible even to human tracking systems. The test had begun. When the aliens launched their second wave, they came in overwhelming numbers. The stars darkened as ship after ship arrived. Their commanders laughed cruelly, believing the humans' first success had been nothing more than luck. "This time," one alien general declared, "there will be no tricks. This time, they will be wiped away." The fleets advanced with confidence, weapons glowing. But then, in the middle of their formation, explosions erupted without warning. Ships twisted apart, their engines tearing free. Others lost their sensors, blind in an instant. Panic spread as the aliens shouted, searching for an enemy they could not see. The secret weapon had arrived. Moving like a ghost, faster than any eye could track, the human ship struck again and again. Its weapons shifted with every attack, adapting to weaknesses within seconds. Alien defenses that had once seemed impenetrable fell apart as if made of glass. In command centers across Earth, leaders watched the battle unfold with awe. "It works," one whispered. "It actually works." But the secret weapon was not just about destruction. It was about fear. For the first time, the aliens felt hunted. They had always been the predators, but now they were prey. Their massive fleets, built for intimidation, were being torn apart by something they could not even see. In the alien council chamber, silence reigned as the reports continued. "Entire squadrons lost," one messenger stammered. "Our forces cannot locate the human vessel. It strikes and vanishes." The council's high speaker's voice cracked with rage. How is this possible? They should not have this power. The older alien who had once warned of human unpredictability lowered his head. He remembered the ancient words, "Humans do not fight with size, but with spirit and cunning." Now those words were no longer myth. They were reality. On the battlefield, the secret weapon tore another line through alien fleets. The prophecy of doom had been broken beyond repair. Humanity was no longer a fragile race awaiting destruction. Humanity had become something else, something dangerous, something that could shake the stars themselves. And though the war was far from over, the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The news of the battle spread faster than light across the galaxy. Worlds that had once laughed at the mention of humanity now spoke the name of Earth with trembling voices. Messages poured into alien colonies, telling the same shocking story. The mighty fleets of the Empire had been destroyed, not in days, not in hours, but in mere minutes. No one could understand it. How could a species so small, so young, and so unprepared defeat the greatest military force the stars had ever seen? On alien homeworlds, civilians gathered in the streets, staring at giant screens that replayed broken transmissions from the battlefield. Flames, debris, and desperate alien voices filled the skies. Mothers clutched their children, leaders locked their doors, and ordinary soldiers whispered questions their commanders could not answer. "If humans can destroy our fleets," one soldier murmured, "then what else can they do?" Fear spread like a disease. Merchants on distant trading hubs refused to supply the Empire's armies, afraid of provoking humanity. Whole colonies demanded answers from the Alien Council, their trust shaken. For centuries, the Council had promised strength and control, but now their promises sounded hollow. The people began to doubt. And doubt was more dangerous than any weapon. Inside the council chamber, the leaders shouted at each other in rage and confusion. Reports lay scattered across the table, filled with numbers that made no sense. Hundreds of warships had been lost, tens of thousands of soldiers dead, and not a single victory to show for it. The High Speaker slammed his claws on the table, his voice breaking. "This is only a trick. It must be. The humans cannot defeat us in open war." Yet even as he spoke, fear was in his eyes. The old alien at the end of the table finally dared to speak again. His voice was soft, but it cut through the shouting. "We ignored the warnings. We ignored the records. Humans are not like us. They fight differently. And now the stars themselves whisper their name." The other leaders hissed at him, but they could not silence the truth. Across the galaxy, fear was shaking the Empire to its core. Meanwhile, on Earth, the people who once trembled now stood taller. In the streets, workers cheered as they watched alien fleets crumble on their screens. Soldiers returned from battle to parades, and engineers who built the secret weapon were hailed as heroes. But while the people celebrated, the commanders did not rest. They knew the war was far from over. Humanity had surprised the Empire, but surprises do not last forever. The aliens would adapt, and when they returned, they would bring everything they had. In underground bunkers, the leaders of Earth gathered once more. Maps of the galaxy glowed on the walls, dotted with alien strongholds and occupied worlds. The generals looked at them not with fear, but with determination. "The galaxy believes we are prey," one commander said. "Let us show them we are hunters." Another nodded. "If we wait, the aliens will strike again with greater force. We must take the fight to them." Plans were drawn, fleets were prepared, and pilots trained harder than ever. Humanity was no longer hiding. They were ready to stand in the open, ready to challenge the Empire not just for survival, but for the right to exist among the stars. Across alien territories, whispers of rebellion began to grow. Species long enslaved by the Empire looked toward Earth with new hope. If humanity could fight back, perhaps they could too. Secret messages were sent in the dark, alliances forming where none had existed before. Fear of humanity became fuel for change. In the Empire's grand capital, protests broke out. Citizens shouted at their rulers, demanding to know why the invincible fleets had fallen, why their brothers and sons had not returned from war. The council ordered silence, but the silence would not come. Fear had become louder than their power. Yet even as the galaxy trembled, the alien council refused to surrender. "We will not fall to these creatures," the High Speaker growled. "We will gather every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We will crush them in one final storm." His voice was fierce, but his heart was shaken. Deep inside, he knew what the others feared to admit. The prophecy had been broken. Humanity had already won something far greater than a battle. They had won the fear of the galaxy. And once fear takes root, it spreads like fire, unstoppable and wild. On Earth, as the sun set over the oceans, a young pilot stood by her fighter, looking up at the stars. Her hands tightened into fists as she whispered to herself, "They thought we would fall in hours. Now they fall in minutes." She climbed into her ship, ready for the next battle. Because humanity understood the truth that the Empire could not see. The war was no longer just for Earth. It was for the future of every world that longed to be free. And as fear spread across the stars, one question echoed in every heart, both alien and human alike. If this is what humanity can do now, what will they become next? The Empire did not wait long before striking again. Within weeks, vast armadas gathered from every corner of alien space. Hundreds of warships, sleek and armed with devastating weapons, formed a wall of firepower. Their commanders promised the galaxy that this time would be different. Humanity had won with surprise, but there would be no surprise now. The alien High Speaker announced to the stars, "We will show these humans their true place. They will learn fear." Across the Empire, citizens watched with mixed feelings, some with pride, others with dread. The wounds of defeat still lingered, and whispers of rebellion had not gone silent. In hidden places, the old alien sage who once warned the council watched in silence, his heart heavy. He knew what was coming. Humanity was not finished. They were only beginning. On Earth, the people no longer felt like prey. Soldiers trained with fire in their eyes, knowing the Empire would come with everything. Engineers worked day and night to improve the weapons that had won the last battle. In the skies above Earth, new ships gleamed, faster and stronger than before. Humanity had tasted victory, and they would not give it up. The leaders gathered once more in their underground war room, staring at maps of enemy fleets moving closer. The commander who had spoken of hunting leaned forward, his voice low. "They think they are ready for us. But they still do not understand. We are not fighting for conquest. We are fighting for survival. And survival makes us stronger than they can ever imagine." The others nodded. Plans were laid out, not for defense, but for something far bolder. This time humanity would not wait for the Empire to come to them. This time they would carry the fight deep into alien territory. When the alien fleets finally reached the borders of Earth space, they expected a desperate defense. Instead, they found silence. The skies where they thought they would crush human resistance were empty. Confusion rippled through the command ships. "Where are they?" one alien officer asked, his voice uneasy. Then the answer came, human ships striking behind them, targeting supply lines, fuel stations, and communication relays. Earth's fleets moved like shadows, never standing still, never meeting the Empire head-on. Instead, they struck where it hurt most. Alien commanders screamed in frustration as reports poured in, docks destroyed, outposts abandoned, warships stranded without fuel. The Empire had prepared for a great battle, but humanity was giving them a different kind of war, a war they were not built to fight. On alien worlds, panic grew. Supplies vanished, messages stopped arriving, and families learned that their sons and daughters were trapped in distant fleets with no way home. The council grew desperate. They sent order after order, demanding their commanders crush humanity quickly. But the more they demanded, the more chaos spread. Humanity was not only fighting, they were teaching the galaxy that the Empire could bleed. And every drop of blood weakened the fear the Empire had once commanded. On Earth, even as celebrations rang in the streets with every victory, the leaders remained serious. "This is only the beginning," one general warned. "The Empire will not stop. They will burn worlds to break us." The others agreed, but there was a fire in their eyes. Humanity had already proven the impossible once. They could do it again. In the shadows of alien space, rebellions began to rise. Slaves and conquered species, long crushed under the Empire's rule, took up weapons. They sent secret messages to humanity, pledging support. For the first time in centuries, the Empire was fighting wars on more than one front. Humanity had turned the tide. What was once fear for Earth had become fear for the Empire. And as the war turned, one truth echoed across the stars: humanity was not just defending their home. They were changing the future of the galaxy itself. The galaxy held its breath as the final storm gathered. The Empire, desperate and wounded, had assembled the largest fleet ever seen in history. Thousands of warships, armed with weapons powerful enough to tear apart planets, moved together like a black tide across the stars. The Alien Council declared that this would be the end, that humanity would finally be crushed, that their short rise would burn out like a candle in the wind. But behind those words was fear. The Council knew this was their last chance. If they failed now, the Empire itself would collapse. On Earth, the leaders stood in silence, staring at the same maps that showed the coming storm. The fleets were too many, the numbers overwhelming. Even with all the new ships, even with the courage of their soldiers, humanity was still outnumbered 10-1. Yet no one in the room spoke of surrender. They had come too far to bow their heads. The commander who once called humanity the Hunters rose from his seat, his voice calm but fierce. "If this is the storm," he said, "then we will meet it head-on. Let the galaxy see that when humans stand together, no force can break us." The others nodded. Orders were given, and across Earth space, fleets moved into position. Every soldier, every pilot, every engineer knew what was at stake. This was not just about survival. This was about proving that humanity belonged among the stars. When the Empire's fleet finally arrived, it filled the darkness with fire. Entire constellations vanished behind the burning engines of alien ships. Their commanders gave the order to advance, expecting the humans to retreat. But humanity did not retreat. From hidden stations, from asteroid fields, from the very shadows of space, the human fleets surged forward. The battle began with a roar that shook the heavens. Explosions lit the void, tearing ships apart in brilliant flashes of light. Alien warships fired streams of energy that ripped through space, while human ships darted and weaved, striking where the enemy was weakest. The Empire had numbers, but humanity had something greater: speed, creativity, and defiance. In one corner of the battlefield, a squadron of small human fighters dove straight into the heart of an alien formation, forcing massive cruisers to turn their fire on each other. In another, hidden cannons built on moons unleashed devastating blasts that shattered enemy lines. Everywhere, the humans fought like a storm inside the storm. But the Empire would not fall easily. Their sheer power crushed entire human squadrons, their weapons burning bright against the darkness. For every alien ship destroyed, humans lost ships too. The battle became a sea of fire and wreckage. Pilots shouted their last words before vanishing into silence. Soldiers gave everything to keep the line from breaking. The galaxy watched in terror and awe, transmissions from the battlefield spreading across worlds like lightning. And still, humanity did not falter. Deep within the human fleet, a secret weapon waited, the same technology that had shattered the Empire's first armada, now stronger, sharper, deadlier. The order was given, and in one blinding instant, waves of energy burst through the Empire's fleets, disabling shields, turning their mighty ships into burning husks. Alien commanders screamed in disbelief as entire formations collapsed in minutes. The Empire's fleet began to break, their numbers no longer enough to save them. Ships fled in every direction, their once mighty unity torn apart by fear. On alien homeworlds, civilians stared at the screens in silence. The Empire had promised victory. Instead, they were watching the end of their power. In the council chamber, the High Speaker stood frozen, his claws trembling. "It cannot be," he whispered. But it was. The storm had turned, and the Empire was drowning in it. On Earth, The people wept and cheered as news of the victory spread. They had survived what no one believed they could. They had stood against the greatest power in the galaxy and broken it. Yet the leaders did not celebrate. They looked at the stars, knowing this was not the end. The empire was shattered, but the galaxy was still full of dangers, full of challenges yet to come. Humanity had proven they could survive. Now they would have to prove they could lead. In the quiet after the battle, as the wreckage of alien and human ships drifted together through the void, a young pilot whispered into the silence. They thought we would fall in hours. We ended their empire in minutes. Her words spread across every ship, every screen, every world. And the galaxy knew the truth. The age of humanity had begun.